Hey everyone, it's Angela Allen. Welcome back to the Handmade Homestead. Well, it is August 1st and we are going to do a quick tour of the garden back there. And I want to apologize up front if I'm squinting. It's actually very bright out here, but it is a little shadier in the gardens. This is actually the side part of my garden. Down there's a great big gate. That's how we get the lawnmower in and out through the shed. We have a big riding mower. That down there is 3 compost bins. Each one is 4x4x4. And there's a couple of barrels on the side of it where I have squash growing. That is kombucha squash and Lakota squash. I'll insert some footage. You can see some of the squash coming in. It's really prolific this year. And we're coming up to, these are my roses. There's 16 feet of roses on either side. We've cut them back severely. They've had a lot of rust on them this year. We've had a lot of rain here in Zone 7A. We are coastal Rhode Island. A lot of heat, a lot of rain. This is my garden overall. You can see this is my side gate. I have another trellis on the front over here, the other side of this garden. So this is my other arch right here. There's a bunch of sunflowers and then that arch, and we'll go look in that direction in a minute. There's a trellis right here. Those are pole beans, nor'easter pole beans that I love, my favorite bean. And then these flowering beauties in the front are sweet potatoes, and behind that are all kinds of squash too. So let's walk that way so you can see that a little bit closer. A lot of sunlight glare, so I'm hoping this is coming out okay for you guys. Again, those are the asparagus beds, all those sunflowers, and this is actually the front of my garden. I don't use this entrance a lot because the house is that way and we come in and out that direction, but yeah, this is the front. Now here to my right, this is a very small little alcove here, but we plant sweet potatoes right along the front here. They are in grow bags, which are wonderful because I can amend them each year. And then right behind them in that space against the fence coming this way is all kinds of winter squash, and they're doing really well. Sweet potatoes, I plant a Japanese sweet potato that is an incredibly deep purple inside, the color of that sweet potato flower, in fact, inside. Isn't that beautiful? And for those of you that don't know, sweet potato greens are absolutely edible. You just break off the tip of the vine. You can cook this just like spinach. I dehydrate it and I use it a lot in soup in the winter because it has a mild taste of sweet potatoes, but that's what all this is. There's 5 grow bags right here of sweet potatoes. And you can see the squash are starting to overtake it. Get in here, maybe you could see better. You can see the squash vines just going right that way into the sweet potatoes, and they're climbing the fence. Again, those are winter squash, and you can see some of the squashes coming up in there, like right down there. There's a really good one. You can see. Yeah. The other thing that's down here is I do have corn growing back there. I don't grow a lot of corn. I grow corn specifically for decorating my mailbox in the winter, but I do end up getting a number of ears. I just hand tassel it when it produces the pollen, and I do get a number of ears. I think last year I got 40 ears of corn. This year I'll probably only get a dozen or so, but that's okay. Right down there's a box right here that looks like it's overflowing. It's actually a wooden box and it's full of watermelon plants, and they're vining out all over too. So we don't walk back here once this goes crazy like this, but I love the wildness and I don't need to come back here until I'm harvesting stuff in the fall. So we just let it go and we give it plenty of room. So this is a close-up of the trellis of beans that I have out here. Again, these are nor'easter beans. They have these really beautiful wide big beans. Now I just harvested this yesterday or last evening actually. I think we had these for supper, and you can see I took every bean I could find off here less than 24 hours ago. And you can see that, I mean, it's just full of them again. It's just crazy how prolific these vines are, considering I just picked them yesterday. I've got some other things scattered through here. These are just squashes. I planted a lot of winter squash this year, and I mean a lot. And there's no way we're going to eat it. But I have a reason for that, and I'll tell you that in just a minute too. These are tromboncino, and they're vining above the trellis, but they just have such a beautiful flower. All right, let's go in that gate here. We're back on the side of the garden. This is the entrance you use most of the time. And we're going to go in here and do some footage, and I'm going to talk to you about what happened with our garden this year, because it was a really good choice for us. The yarn long bean starting. Such a great bean. And trellising squash is always great idea. It works really well, especially even for these big heavy squash. That is our house in the background. You can see about how far away the garden is, and we come in and out of this garden from that deck right there, so that's why we use the side of it. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the garden itself. So last year and the year before, and pretty much every year for my gardening career, which has been about 40 years now that I've been gardening, I have grown as much produce as I could possibly grow, and I have given all of that extra to friends and relatives and neighbors and everyone I could get to take it. But this year is different. I decided that since there's only really 3 of us in my household now, and one of my adult children lives here and does not eat a lot of vegetables. It's just my husband and I eating the veggies. And my freezers are pretty full and my pantry is pretty stocked. I decided I would just grow food for fresh eating. Growing just enough to pick whatever I want first thing in the morning for my meals that day, and then to put a little bit aside for colder weather. It also meant not only not growing as much, but growing more of the things that we really enjoy and none of the things that we don't enjoy. I mean, seriously, you can only eat so much kale in a week. Yeah, you know. Let's just have a seat and talk. Tried really hard not to overplant anything. Instead of 50 tomato plants, I have probably 25. But in growing less, I've found that I've been able to grow a lot more variety. And as soon as we've had enough of one vegetable, I just remove the plants. Even if it's still productive, I remove the plants and I plant something else, something different, or more of something that we've really been enjoying this year, because I didn't plant a huge garden. And with that extra room, planting extra squashes, having more than we need means that I can donate a lot of them. So we have a couple of local food pantries, and there's always a big need for extra. So our plan is to donate any of the extra winter squashes that we've grown. And again, like I said, there's only 3 of us. I do have winter squash in my freezer. So I'm really hopeful of donating a number of winter squash to a local food pantry. That's my plan. That was my plan when I planted them. And yeah, this has turned out to be a really good thing for our family. It means a little bit less time in the garden dealing with the crush of abundance that you can get when you grow more than you need. It also means we enjoy the garden when we're out here moving around. It does not feel like a jungle. It's more open, there's more airflow, it's just tidier and more enjoyable to be in it. So that has worked really well for us. And I know I keep getting out of the screen. I apologize for that. I did not bring a tripod out with me because I wanted to show you the garden itself, and it's just easier with my handheld tripod. It's just a little, 6-inch tripod. So All right, so that's my thing about the garden. So you're gonna see it looks more open and it looks cleaner. There are a lot of empty spots in the garden right now. We've done some pretty big cleanup. It is August 1st, as I said, and we are going to replant a bunch of different things. And if I can remember what I think I might plant in places, I'll tell you as I go. But I think we're gonna do some chaos seed planting in the next couple of days just to fill in those empty spots and just to see what comes up. I'm not really needful of a lot of produce. We've got a lot already, and what we have is still producing really well, so we might just do that for fun. So I'll keep you posted on that. But let's take a walk along the paths. I'll show you what's growing and tell you what was planted and what will be coming out, and just so you can see what a small micro homestead garden. We have about 3,000 square feet altogether of gardening space in our yard. Not that in here. It's probably 2,200 square feet in our actual big vegetable garden where I'm sitting now. But you can see what a small garden can produce for, 3, 4, 5 people easily, even when it is dramatically underplanted. And this is dramatically underplanted. So let's go. We'll start at the beginning. A walk from here. This is the back of the garden here, all the way over this way first, so you can see how it goes. And these are my rows going down. That's that row back there where all those sweet potatoes are. You can see my rows. Trying to walk steady, but it's kind of hard on wood chips. All right, these are my garden rows. Now behind me, I'm going to turn around. We use a 3-bin system. So this is my compost pile we're adding to. The middle is empty, and the very far end one down there, that is compost I can use in the garden. It has a little bit of extra dirt on the top at the moment. Doesn't look like compost, but it is. That's finished compost. So come fall, when the garden is cleaned out, this compost will go over one to the middle. The rest of that compost will be used in the garden. And then we will start a brand new compost. So we always have one we're adding to, one that's finished, and one that's empty, or the next year's compost started if this one gets full. So that's how we run the system for us. But it works really well. We make, 6 yards maybe of finished compost a year that we can use in the garden. So every 12 months we're making about 6 yards. That is a lot of compost. Now, compost looks bigger than it is. When it breaks down, that big pile, will compact down to usable compost, but it's perfect for this garden and all of our surrounding garden beds to keep them all plumped up full of dirt. And as you can see, none of them are super full. A lot of them could use more. So we always use the compost. We never have to buy dirt. And I really don't fertilize. Other than using a Jadam tank for fertilizer, I do not fertilize this garden with regular fertilizer. And as you can see, the plants are thriving. So this row here closest to the back of the shed, I just want to point out a couple of the pots. This is a Meyer lemon tree. I have a 30-year-old Meyer lemon tree up on the deck that's quite a bit taller. It's maybe almost 8 feet tall. This is a smaller one. This comes in the winter. It does not stay outside. That little green bucket right there is leeks. That's how I grow my leeks. I don't need a lot of them, so I just put about 30 in a bucket like that and let them grow. And, if anything changes with the weather, I can move them, but there are holes in that bucket. It's actually a work bucket that had a crack in it, and I just put a few more holes, and that's what I use, and it works really well for me. That is a mandarin orange that comes in for the winter, and the next one over is a Kefir lime. It has very few branches on it. I've stripped that down a lot. It was huge, but it also was gifted to me, and it came to me with scale bugs on it. So in managing those scale bugs, which I did get on all of my citrus out here when they were in my house. I have a big window in my weaving studio, and that's where they live in the winter. But as you can see, they're thriving outside. They're doing super well. All right, so row number 1. This is my first row over here, and each section is about 16 feet. Then there's that trellis, and then there's another 16 feet, if that helps you with just measurement style. So these are just some calendula. I do collect my seeds. I do use them for medicinal purposes. I'm a soap maker too, and part of being self-sufficient, I try to make our soap and candles and laundry detergent and all of that stuff too. So that's why I grow them, plus they're beautiful and the bees love them. Eggplant are doing really well this year with all of this heat and humidity. They've been happy. I have two kinds of eggplant. I have these black beauties. They're just getting going. I have harvested quite a bit off of them, but they're still just coming on strong. And I also have a Rosa style eggplant. You can see there's lots of eggplants here. I'm just trying to find you a fruit so you can see. Oh my goodness. Oh, there's one back there. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's kind of a purpley color. They're quite beautiful. And peppers, these are pippins. They start off with these wonderful kind of speckled colors. They go green, green, then you get speckled, then you get this dark purpley color. They're really pretty prolific. I think they're really good. I did start them from seed. It's the first time I've grown them. My peppers are quite tall. They do really well for me. We have Swiss chard and then basil, a couple of kinds of basil. I'm really a basil fan. So that's this little bed. Again, the roses look sad, but they'll bounce back. They'll be fine. On this side of the trellis, I have yard-long beans. So we have green and I have purple. They're just getting rolling. I also have cucumbers. My cucumbers are just about at the end of the road, but they are doing a good job still. I have planted the next succession of them somewhere else, but we're still getting these in the meantime. And the squashes, you guys, I am like, what can I say about this? They are just, these vines are coming from the other side. And as you can see, they are just full of squashes. This is the inside of the trellis. You can see all the beans are just coming out. But there are just squashes everywhere. Do you see them? I'm thinking you can probably see them in the camera. They're just so prolific. Now looking at these, I'm going to say that these are kombucha squashes. And this is another cucumber vine. Right down there, there's a grow bag. And there's another cucumber vine in here. But again, I've already pulled out one of the cucumber vines. This other one's still going, but they are about at the end of their time. The other side of the trellis where those squashes are growing. And this whole 16-foot section here, these are peppers. Now, I don't know how tall, if you can see that those are at least 3.5 feet tall, those peppers. No fertilizer, just compost and the occasional sprinkling from the Jadam tank. I've removed some of the leaves from this squash plant. And the reason, of course, is so that these peppers could actually get enough sunlight. Now, I'm not sure if you can tell from there how tall these peppers are, but that fence, if I come down here like this, the fence behind the peppers back there is 4 feet tall. Those roses are on a 4-foot tall fence. They'll be 4.5 feet eventually, I would say. I think last year they were almost 5. And that's without fertilizer. I want to stress that. I've used compost in these beds, and I do have a liquid Jadam tank. It is kind of considered a kind of fertilizer, but what it produces for your garden is a lot of microbes to feed the microbes in the soil. So that's its job. But I'm sure it has some nutrition in it, but I don't actually use any other kind of fertilizer. So this year I grew a ton of peppers. I have 85 pepper plants in this garden altogether. And my reason for that is I wanted them more in the freezer and to dehydrate. So these are all shishito peppers. I love shishito peppers. They're pretty amazing. I pick them every few days. We blister them in a hot frying pan, and eat them with olive oil and salt and pepper, and they're still just so prolific. It's crazy. I don't know if I can remember all of these in a row, but I will try. I believe that these are sweet banana peppers. They've also been really prolific. I've just picked peppers 2 days ago. I did put a bunch in the freezer, but I also have Cubanelle, Ajvarsky peppers. I think there might be a couple of Jimmy Nardello in here too. And at the very end, there's a couple of bell peppers, and there are Nadapenos, which I just picked them all, so there's not a lot of peppers to be seen at the moment, but I swear they've been productive. I have so many peppers in the house, it's pretty crazy. These are, I'm not sure if these might be Cubanelle, but yeah. But it is always interesting when you grow peppers. There's a bell pepper or two in here too. These have just fallen over from the weight, but with peppers, if you kind of go through like this, you can often find a lot of fruit. It's kind of fun. All right, so that's peppers. I put zinnia and marigolds, petunias, borage, nasturtium, and calendula flowers all through my garden. This was my garlic. I just pulled the garlic. I can stick a little picture in here so you can see how those, I had a really great year with music, huge, great big bulbs the size of my palm. So I'll stick a picture right in here for you, and you can see that. This is the back of my asparagus bed, and of course, who can have a garden without sunflowers? I really don't know. All right, let's turn around and we'll go back down this road. Very close to these trees here, so it's kind of hard to see. But this is actually my little orchard row. I deliberately planted fruit trees inside of my garden to keep them small, like a hedgerow. Want them to be small and productive, but not overly productive. So here they are, and we do trim them back frequently. So this first one, and you're going to notice they're all white because I do spray them with kale and clay. Kale and clay, and I use fungicide, but I try not to spray them with anything else. So I try to stay, anything within the walls of my garden is organic, so I'm really careful about that. So this is a pear tree. These trees are maybe 4 or 5 years old. This tree, this is the first year that it has produced fruit. It has not produced much. And with the humidity, we trimmed recently, you can see there's some dead leaves. That's what that's from. With the humidity, there's been a real issue with rust on this tree. But that's okay. We will take care of it this fall. When those leaves drop and I reshape these trees, we will get these sprayed and make sure they get some extra spray next year too. The trees haven't been in that long. We haven't been looking for a lot of fruit for them, but we, just trying to get them started and shaped and the size we want. Now this is my favorite tree in the garden. This is a Red Haven peach. As I said, we've not been really focused on fruit. We're just focused on getting these trees the size and shape that we want and having them healthy. But as you can see, even though I did thin fruit, this tree is just loaded. We did bag a lot of it, just as an attempt to keep the bug issues down. But as you can see, it is just, it's loaded with fruit. There's a lot of it. Those are all bags. You see that lighter green color, and the other side too. There's just so much fruit in this tree. And I did thin fruit. I did. And this one right next to it, this is an Alberta peach. This tree, I bought one, it died. I bought another one. It came with some problems in the way the canopy is growing, and it decided to be fruitful and multiplied this year too. So it's full of fruit. We're going to let it go. And again, I'll continue to work on the shaping of this tree. Now, I do spray them, like I said, heavily with kale and clay. And that's what gives them that white appearance. They are due for another spray, but that's what all of that white is. As you can see, we just tipped them. Summer pruning for us is just to check the growth, so these aren't 20-foot trees. And then come winter time, once they've lost their leaves, I will go back in and I will actually shape the tree the shape that I want. And this tree is still definitely in need of shaping. So let's go that way. Those are apple trees. So those are the 2 peach trees and the pear tree down there in that direction. And in between them, I have this grow bag that I plant zinnias in. It just looks so sweet from outside of the garden and from in, and it really does bring in a lot of pollinators. It's just the cutest thing. Let me show you from outside of the arch. I just think that is just the prettiest picture to see, especially when the sun's streaming in like right now. Okay, now I've switched sides because the sun was right in your face. So I'm on the other side of the row. Those are the fruit trees up there. This is that fruit tree row. This is an apple. It's a Cortland and a Spartan. This apple tree is a Cortland and a Macintosh. Now we've had pretty good apples this year. You can't see from this angle, but there are a lot of bags on there holding apples and protecting them, and they're doing really well. I did bag some of the apples. That was a new thing for me. I've never bagged fruit before this year, so I did bag quite a bit of it, and it's okay. I can tell you that I won't be doing it again. I don't know if you can see all those apples in there. But a lot of these apples and peaches and the pears, when I bagged them, even though I didn't tie them overly tight, they dropped. They just dropped right off the tree. So I won't be doing it again. I love these apple trees. They stay at a great height. They are productive. The apples are fantastic. But here's the issue with them. You can see this with the sun glare, but can you see that they have canker? This one, it started out way down there at the bottom. I wrapped it with some fungicide powder on it, and it never got worse down there, but it is definitely spread to other places. So these trees will not survive. I mean, they're fine right now, and they're productive. They're definitely productive. But they probably won't survive the next 5 or more years. They'll probably have to be removed. And it's disappointing. I bought these from a really great company. Nobody else around me has apple trees that I know of. But it is what it is. I didn't plan for that, but there we go. When I replace them, I will replace them with disease-resistant varieties to whatever diseases I find are most common here in Rhode Island for those trees. But in the meantime, until that fungus girdles them enough to kill the tree, we're just going to keep taking care of them and keep using the fruit, and eventually they'll be replaced. In gardening, nothing is ever certain. Nothing ever is guaranteed. And for me, at least, that's just all part of the process. Look at those apples, though. It's worth keeping it until its demise. All right here at the base of those, there's one grow bag that has a zucchini in it. Ouch. You know how zucchini is. This one hasn't been overly productive. It's given me a couple zucchini, but nothing like its sisters in the back row, and we'll get there in a minute. So that's my first row. Well, my first 2 rows. Third row. This, I don't know why, but this is always my favorite row down here. All right, so I'm just going to walk along and show you what was or is in here. We're going to start with behind the leeks here. This whole row, this was all carrots, and I just pulled it a couple of days ago. And this was all peas. that I replanted with cucumbers. So those are cucumbers, and then this side of it, I don't know if you can see, but the plants are just starting to come up. Those are later planted, so there's several weeks between these two, maybe 3 or 4, and I did that on purpose. And seriously, how many cucumbers does one person need? I just picked 6 big pickle size, you know, like a big pickle size, yesterday, and I already have a brown paper grocery bag full of them in the house. So today, after I do this, I'm making relish, and then I'm making relish, and then I'm probably making some more relish. And then I have some onions back here. They're just green onions. I don't eat a lot of bulb onions, so yeah, that back there is a wonderful fennel plant. I have one bronze fennel. It is perennial. It will come back every year. It gets really tall, maybe 5 feet, but I did harvest it and dehydrate it recently, and boy does it taste good. It is so sweet and anise flavored. It's just unbelievable. But one big plant of that is enough, for more than enough for me to dry for tea during the winter and to use in pork dishes and that kind of thing. It's great in sausage. It's great on vegetables too, but we just don't need that much anise. So one plant is all I need, one clump of it. So I do cut it off before the seeds drop and then dehydrate it for tea. So I did that recently. If I can find it, I'll stick some footage in here for you to see that too. This is a volunteer tomato plant I found somewhere in this garden earlier, and I just planted it, and it's about to produce fruit. I can see all the flowers on it. I do have a little stepping stone path here just so I can get between rows without walking around. I do stick marigolds in wherever I can. That is another volunteer tomato. I have no idea what kind of tomatoes they are. They are just tomatoes. So back here where it's so weedy, I have not weeded it, you can see there were onions growing there, bunching onions that I had left in the ground over winter, and they were, we've used them all, but some of the bulbs are still in there that I need to pull up. This is Swiss chard, more Swiss chard, and beets along with some extra weeds, but those beets are ready to pull too. Yep, more cucumbers. More cucumbers. These I'm about to pull out and just replant them with something else for the fall. Probably some more cucumbers. And down there in that area, I'm just going to chaos garden, really. I think I'm going to plant very small blocks of different things. So I might do a little block here, maybe 1 feet by 2 of lettuce, and then maybe 1 feet by 2 of turnips, and then 1 feet by 2 of beets. Just small amounts of different things. I do like the mixed in look to a garden. I don't want a garden to be too orderly. That just doesn't suit my my way of doing things, but it's good, you know. I don't need anything really big. I've got a lot of produce in this garden now, so that's my plan. I'm going to show you the underside of this peach tree, if you can see. Can you see all that fruit? Is that not? It's just crazy. This tree is just loaded with fruit. And like I said, I did go through and remove a ton of this fruit early on in the season when I was bagging, and it's just full of fruit. So it looks like most of it will be usable. It may not be the most beautiful fruit, but I don't see any puncture marks, just a few little speckles on most of it. But we'll see. Make good jam anyway. We don't have to eat them for them to be good jam. This area right here under the sunflowers, that Tromboncino squash, I just left that. I left that fallow this year. This is the inside of that front trellis. And as you can see, the squash are just so prolific. All kinds of little ones. They're super cute too. I really like the look of those little squashes. They're even through the they've gone to the next trellis over. Here we are back in the sun. I apologize, it just is the angle. This is a trellis of rattlesnake beans. Again, I did pick beans yesterday. I don't know if you can see them. I'm thinking you can. It's just full of beans again. And again, like I said, yesterday I picked all of the beans out here. So this is there's a little planting container, almost like a little raised bed right down there at the bottom. And that's where I plant them. And then this row has a 16-foot trellis, 16 feet long, 4 feet wide. It's about a foot off the ground, so at least 5 feet tall. And I can plant on either side of it. So all of those tomatoes you see are actually planted on the other side, as is this squash. So we'll get to those in a second, but just quickly going through the bottom, it's just some petunias, and then these are my next planting of carrots here. There's an empty spot. There's definitely some vines that need to be retrellised for the tomatoes, and then these are beets. Those are just a few weeks behind the other ones behind us. And then I do a lot of pot planting like this right here. Let's swing around and go up that row. This is something I did this year that I will continue to do. This is cantaloupe melons. I believe they're Jenny Lind is the melon. Some of them have come out of the trellis. Frankly, I did this because we had a lot of bunny issues early on and they kept mowing down everything I planted. So I had hand started these in a seed pack. So I ended up putting them in this grow bag. Let me back up. Putting it in that grow bag and then putting this wire around it and trellising them up, and they have done brilliantly. And if you look at the very bottom, they're really producing. There's 3 really nice melons right down there, but they're full of flowers and full of new little melon starts too. And they still have a long way to grow. It's only the 1st of August. So I think next year I'm going to do this with most of my melons, or at least several of them, for just the Jenny Lind small personal melon, Kajari melons, chrysanthemum melons, that kind of thing. Small personal melons. As the vines come out, which they invariably poke out, I just put them back in and they just grow right back in there. So we're doing good. So these are all sun gold tomatoes. And these are all large red cherries. Now, large red cherry tomatoes are very popular. They are maybe 3 times the size of a regular cherry tomato, but I don't really like them. This is the first year I've grown them. I won't be growing them again. They're okay-ish, but there are so many really delicious tomatoes out there. I am not willing to spend time and effort and have this going on for tomatoes that I only kind of sort of like. This year I had a little problem with all of my tomato starts, and almost all of them just died. They got aphids on them early. I don't know why, because I do start them in my house or in my outside, my back porch. If you look, there's a sunroom right there. And I have growing racks in there, and then I do my growing in there once it's warm enough and not too warm. But there was just an aphid problem. I sprayed them. They didn't do well. I ended up buying tomato plants, which I never do, but I did. And I'm fine with that. The only things I could find for cherry tomatoes, this is what I found. Large red cherry, and I had never tried them, so I thought I would try them, but no, not for me. And the other thing was sun gold, which I know people love sun gold, and they do taste really delicious, but the skins are kind of hard and tough and chewy, which I wasn't overly fond of that. So they're okay. I would grow them again for the flavor, but I wouldn't grow all of them. Now, these are not sun gold. These are midnight snackers, which is, as the sun comes out more and more on them, these tomatoes will get jet black. And if I can find a picture, I'll put the picture in here for you to see of another year when I grew them. and the vines had died back. They didn't do well. They got some kind of disease, blight probably, and they died back. And the sun was on those tomatoes. And let me tell you, they were black like a marble, like a big black marble. And they were so full of anthocyanins that you saw no green at all on them anywhere. It was crazy. No red, no green. But were they the most delicious tomatoes ever? They were. So I've been in love with them ever since then, and my intention is to try to always plant at least one or two. This is a plant, or these two plants, I started from seed, and they did survive my aphid issue of early spring that, diseased and killed off all of my seedlings. So I was lucky to get them in, but if you ever have a chance to try Midnight Snacker cherry tomatoes, give them a try. They're wonderful. The other side of this trellis is a Waltham butternut. Now there's only one here, one plant. And there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 big squashes on it. I've never really grown a lot of butternut squashes, but I did start doing it this year because starting last year I started to have some trouble with vine borers, and we'll get to that in a minute too. So these are the only other tomato plants I planted. These are Jetstar, and Jetstar are a hybrid, not an heirloom. I try to only plant heirloom tomatoes, but I've had some disease problems recently, the past couple years, with tomatoes, and these were what was available when I went looking for plants to replace all the ones that I didn't have. Now these are all obviously going to ripen at the same time because they're so big. They are a determinate tomato. They're not going to get any taller, and they're really prolific, and there's no disease problems with these plants. And every single tomato, as you can see, is perfect. And back down here towards my cherry tomatoes just to tell you something that you might find helpful. So again, I'm back to at this point. So these are the sun golds, and these over here are the large red cherries. And you'll notice that they are quite bushy. Normally, I prune tomatoes back to 1 or 2 liters per plant, and then stake them. These trellises are specifically for tomato plants. However, this year I decided I was not going to prune them, and I was just going to let them do their thing and see what happens. Well, the amount of fruit on these tomatoes is pretty darn phenomenal. And it is easy enough to manage the vines on this cattle panel trellis. So I have 3 of them here. I have one. Then there's a walkway right here between these 2 rows, and then another cattle panel and a cattle panel here. So I have 3 16-foot cattle panel trellises, and I plant them close. Let me go around the other side so you can see. All right, can you see how close I plant these tomatoes? They are probably 18 inches, 16 inches, something like that I put them in here all along these panels, and I have no problem with growing them or disease. There's a little bit of yellowing right here I'm noticing. I did have something in this row that I removed that was blocking the sun a little bit and the airflow, but yeah, I didn't prune, and I'm really pretty happy I didn't prune, and I'm thinking I might no longer be a tomato pruning person. Now I am tying them back as I need to. As long as I can walk through the rows, they have freedom to be as wild as they want. But again, determinate tomatoes, you should never prune. All right, so this half of this row, I planted a few melons. They didn't do well. This is going to come out. This is the back of some zucchini, and this is my vine borer problem. Somewhere in there, a vine borer got a hold of my plant, and it's, killed off that squash plant. It's still going a little bit. If you see movement down there in the corner, that's one of my hens. She's a buff Orpington, so she's kind of tan. I just wanted you to know what it was. Anyway, so this has died back, but that's okay. I'm just going to let it go. There's some really good squash coming up on it from it, and if it has a demise, then we'll let it go. But that's the only problem. So for bug problems, I've had this. Now, I'm not even sure that's a vine borer. I think it may actually be cucumber beetles. I've seen 3 or 4 cucumber beetles, and I've had some vine wilt on some of the cucumbers and this squash, and I'm thinking that could be the issue, but I'm not 100% sure. And at this point, this time of the year, I don't really care. I'll just replant. These are my last 2 rows, and we don't have to go all the way back. This row has been reset. There's nothing planted in it. This row has 5 new zucchini plants already planted in it for the fall. This is not replanted. I'm not sure if I'm going to plant anything in there at all. It's been reset and it's ready for planting. As you can see, after everything is removed, and I'm a no-dig gardener, so I don't dig up or pull up a lot, but after everything is removed, I add a layer of compost and I add a layer of grass clippings or some kind of mulch. That's what I did here, and I may or may not plant that in the next couple days. I haven't decided. And let's go that way just a little bit. This trellis has green beans on this side. I think they're Kentucky Blue or Kentucky Wonder. And this is more purple long beans, I believe. They are yard long beans, and they're going over the trellis. And it's just a really nice, sweet little place to sit. I love that little area. And this is back to that squash patch that you saw from the other side, so we won't go through all of this. But these are 3 zucchini plants. I did a little video about that the other day. They're very productive. I don't need to pull them out because they're productive, but they've obscured my path. And I'm not going back there, so it doesn't really bother me too much. There's a grow bag with cucumbers in it, but I can access it from outside, and I can walk in there. I do to pick the zucchini. And 1 more tomato plant. And then another volunteer tomato plant. I don't even know what kind that is. And again, the corn from the other side, and all of the squash and the watermelons are back there. If you have any questions, just put them below. Thank you for spending time with me. I really appreciated it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps so much. I'll put another video up here that you might enjoy, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.